Hey, friends. So, I had a great conversation with my coach yesterday, and she gave me a set of ideas, really a kind of a she gave me an interesting perspective on how I might look at where I am and where I'm going. And it's something that has already come up in my own work with my students, and that I had in a lot of ways touched on with various people in various ways, but that through my conversation yesterday became really more defined than it ever has. And basically, to sum it up, she asked me how it was going with my business, and how the various projects that I have been discussing with her and working on with her are going, how they're, where various things stand. And so I gave her the report of all the things that are on the docket right now. And then I spoke specifically about the business that I've started and that's still plugging along in some ways, but that I also haven't expanded on in quite a while. It's kind of plateaued, and while I was in the MacGyver thick of things, it sort of receded a little bit. It's kind of coming back now, but I'm not. I noticed that I wasn't pushing it. I haven't been pushing it, and when I look at how I spend my time, my enthusiasm actually guides me in a different direction. It hasn't come up as something where I just can't wait to start pushing it. And what my coach said, which I thought was very insightful, was, well, rather than trying to declare that there's something wrong and that I need to change my process so that I make more progress in this area, she said, what if you take a step back and look at how you do spend your time, look at how I do spend my time, and try to discern what the values are that I'm holding, what values are being served by the way I spend my time. Because how we spend our time will tell us in no uncertain terms what our actual values are, or she called them true values, what our true values are. Because there's all kinds of societal values and values that we hold or pick up or try to satisfy on the basis of what we think someone else's opinion of us might be, or someone else's valuing of something. Maybe we feel a desire to please them, to be affirmed by them, or to somehow get their blessing, and so we think that we're holding certain values, but that we actually don't, because our actions speak louder than words in that department. And so there's a discriminatory process that she was encouraging me to go through, which is just look at what you do and see what your true values are. How do you spend your time? And maybe you'll discover that what you're doing really does serve what you most deeply value. And you actually want to expand your investment in those areas and really take those values even more seriously, instead of creating an idea of what you should be doing with your time, what I should be doing with my time, what I should be building, what I should be focusing on. Put my energy into what I feel most deeply actually is in alignment with my values, with not my values up here, not my values, because and this is where I have to kind of get uh I have to discriminate just within my own awareness a little bit, because I sort of get caught in my values up here, and I know that I've spent at various phases in my life spent time serving these values up here, but before too long, those values kind of they fade off screen, and these values take over again and drive the ship. And there's no point in trying to build a business or trying to do anything that requires effort and sustained commitment if it's not in alignment with what I really care about. And what that did for me is still doing for me, to me, that little nugget of insight and that slight reframe in my approach was it gives me permission to care about what I care about. And sometimes that's a big thing. Sometimes just, that's Annalise's monitor. She's downstairs taking a nap. Uh-oh. Hopefully she goes back to sleep. We'll see. Sometimes that permission to just care about what we care about is a big thing. And it brings me kind of back into alignment. I'm going to turn the volume down on this. It brings me back into alignment with myself. So instead of trying to, because on one level, all of us, I think, we're looking at, how do we make our living? How do we sustain ourselves? How do we create a foundation for the life we want to live? And some of that is necessity. Some of that is freedom. I mean, that's the Kierkegaardian duality, freedom and necessity. And necessity isn't all bad. Necessity is a lot of ways, necessity can be a real guide, can be kind of like a guide, it can be a beacon, because total freedom, total absence of constraints can be disorienting. Ultimately, constraints and discipline, choosing a track, choosing a path, sticking with it, walking the path long term is really important. That can be a really powerfully empowering thing, to have constraints on ourselves, as opposed to just unbridled, unfettered openness. But where, as far as this values conversation is concerned, finding that permission within myself to actually just love what I love, do what I want to do, and then of course there'll be necessity. There'll be things I have to do. There'll be parts of the picture that I have to surrender to, even if they don't seem like this is my ideal thing to do right now in this moment. But that's not a problem. And there's a kind of like, as I have this sense, this is something that has come up in the various creative projects that I've done over the past year or two as well, where I notice that when I am doing what I feel most deeply called to do, I just existentially relax. The anxiety, the worrying about whether it's going to work out, all that kind of goes away. In some ways, I become even more, I feel like my velocity increases. I'm moving even faster, and I'm surveying and analyzing possibilities even faster. But I'm not doing so out of a kind of heated, anxious, frantic state. I'm simply allowing myself to see things, and relevant information is coming to me faster because I'm by and large oriented towards the world in the way that I want to be oriented towards the world. That's the big kind of like keystone lesson of clarifying and defining our values, is it lets us know that we are doing what we're meant to do. And so and of course, as the universe would have it, that same principle has come up in a couple of different conversations, even since I spoke to my coach about it, and she kind of like put me in this place. But the thing that I think the lesson that I'm trying to focus on and that I'm trying to kind of lean into is there's a sense of permission. Acknowledging what my true values are is like permission to be me. And then I can build on that. I can build on what I want to be doing, what I love doing. I can build on what I'm most naturally suited to do, rather than trying to build something that supports that, but that's actually kind of an intellectual distraction and it's not really tied in. And I feel like there's a way that I myself can get kind of convoluted in terms of where to put my focus anytime that I deviate from that center, anytime that I deviate from that place of this is just it's a heart orientation to life. It's a heart orientation to the moment, to my day, to my work, to my family, to my activity, to everything. When I'm in that place, it's like, it's just that sense of walking with ease. Even if it's really hard work, I'm walking with ease. I'm moving with ease. So that's just showing up for me today. And again, it's kind of like this came up yesterday, and I've had a day or so to digest it. But that's it's really giving me a sense of calm and a sense of empowerment to know that I have permission to be me. I don't have to build a business that I don't want to build. Not that I don't want to build this business, but but as long as there are imposed layers of should, I'm kind of never going to know what it is, or exactly what the next steps are. I'm going to lose touch with that underlying motivation. So I'm just kind of breathing into that today and letting that be where I am. I noticed that spending time with Annalise, playing piano, even just looking at some of the songs I've written and remembering what it feels like. I haven't written a song in a long time, but there's a place of kind of ease and play. And maybe those things get to define my steps. Maybe I don't need to impose another path on myself. Yeah. That's where I am today, folks. I appreciate you. Love you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.